Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning into the Locker Room today. I'm Alan Locher, and as you know, I grew up watching both As the World Turns and Guiding Light. I joined the PR department there in 1997 and remained working on both shows for 13 years before they went off the air. As I was stuck home in quarantine, I realized that I was missing my Oakdale family and thought some of you may be feeling the same way as I was. Today, we have a great group of actors. We have Judson Mills, who played Alexander Hutchison, Yvonne Perry, who played Rosanna Cabot, Allyson Rice, who played Connor Walsh, and Tom Wiggin, who played Kirk Anderson. Please say hello to everybody. Yvonne, Tom,
Hey.
Hi.
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
Thanks so much for hanging out with me today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. See everybody. Yeah, this is cool. Good vibes.
When you were mentioning years, when was the last time you saw this group, Judson?
Got to be 30 years. Got to be 30 years.
That's not true, Judson.
No. Oh, well, Yvonne and I have seen each other. That's true. Yes. We've been able to hang out. She was kind enough to come see a show that I did. I did a musical. Who would have thunk? I did a musical tour that did a North American tour. It was a remake of the Kevin Costner, Whitney Houston movie called The Bodyguard, which was a big hit at the time and a lot of great music. And Yvonne came out and saw the show, and we hung out and got to catch up. So that was really nice.
Judson's being humble. He was like starring in this show.
Was he playing Kevin? Were you playing Kevin?
Yeah,
Kevin's role?
I got to be the bodyguard. I've got some shameless where is it at? Shameless self-promotion here in the background. Subtly looming in the background.
Better than Kevin Costner. He was so good. So charismatic. It was so great to see him doing his thing on stage after like 2 decades. And we hung out a little bit after. I saw it twice, Judson, remember?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that was cool. Thank you for the kind words. I really enjoyed it. It was super challenging and a lot more than I thought it would be. But I mean, there's nothing like stage work, and there's nothing like traveling with a group of people like that and getting to know each other and becoming a family and going through life. It was an 18-month tour, so it was it was a long time.
One of our fans just commented that they saw you at the North Shore Music Theater in Mass.
Oh,
so they came out to see you.
Nice.
Does it translate well into a music, a stage musical?
Yeah, there's a few elements that were challenging. I thought it translated really well. One of the things about Frank Farmer is that Costner is such a great artist of subtlety, and Lawrence Kasdan and the camera are really well designed to capture that subtlety. And so for the character who was very stoic and very humble and very sort of, as a bodyguard, you're trained to disappear into the background so you can be undetectable. And so it was challenging to bring that internal life to the stage, where so much of the work in the movie was done, right up in your face and in your eyes. And so the first few cities we hit, I got a lot of horrible reviews for being like boring. I think they called me pausing Frank in Chicago because I was doing my film work stuff still on stage. I was hearing things and then thinking and then trying to respond. And so I had to figure out a way to as Yvonne said, find some charisma and some personality for this guy on stage. Other than that, I thought it translated really well.
That's good. What a smart actor you are, Judson, because you had figured it out. By the time I saw you, there was no lack of charisma on stage. You were really, I couldn't take my eyes off you in all the scenes that you were in. You just had that character down. Right and, on. You were with a really strong personality. I mean, I saw both actresses play the lead. Right?
Yeah.
One of your fiance.
Yes. Yeah. Naomi Wally. Yep. And then did you see Deborah? Did you get to see Deborah?
I did see Deborah too.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. Yeah, she was great also.
Deborah Cox must have been amazing too. I mean, her voice.
Fantastic. Wow. So it was great. It was wonderfully enriching and learning, and it was a top 5 life moment type of thing, man.
And Tom, do you do theater? Tom, are you doing theater?
Well, I did enough theater. I was doing a lot of theater in Washington, D.C. in the past 5 years. So my wife and I had moved from Connecticut to Arizona, and then we moved. She got a gig in, of all places, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, just doing something other than show business. And I decided to go back to my hometown, Alexandria, Virginia, and because I'd heard that the theater scene was nuts there, and it is. The theater just exploded in the Washington, D.C. area while over the 30 years I'd been gone. Wow. So I wound up doing about 5 shows in the area. I did 3 shows almost back to back at Arena Stage, which was a nice moment for me because that's where I really decided to become an actor. I saw Sizwe Bonzi Was Dead, and I saw Joe Morton in Raisin there. And when I saw those 2 things, I was like, this is what I wanted to do. And of course, the first big rush was to work with Joe Morton on Another World back a lifetime ago. But yeah, so I wound up doing theater there, and I did just enough theater to realize I didn't want to do any more theater. So it was great. I was really happy to do it, but I was like, yeah, that's good. I'm grateful for the opportunity. I had some, great experiences there working at Arena, especially. I got to do a very intense show, also. And it was the lead. And so I kind of proved to myself I could still carry a show if I had to.
Yeah.
Big deal. A lot of pressure.
But I decided that's enough for me. So I want to tell stories. A different way. So I've moved behind the camera, creating shows and doing that kind of stuff. So
we'll get to that. Let's go back in time. Who remembers their first day in Oakdale?
Ooh.
Go ahead, Yvonne.
Well, Judson was my screen test.
That's right.
Oh, good. I will ask about the screen test too, if you remember.
My first couple days in Oakdale, Rosanna was in the Runaway Center, and my roommate in the Runaway Center was a young actress named Lauryn Hill.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Went on to win, Grammys for the Fugees, and also did Sister Act and all that stuff.
She was Nancy's protege. Nancy Hughes'
protege.
Wasn't Nancy teaching her to read or something?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yvonne beat out Parker Posey among others in that crew for that role. By the way, that was
no. Actually, no? Parker. That's how I met the casting director at As the World Turns, Vince Liebhart, because I auditioned for Parker's role the year before.
Oh, that's right.
Right.
That's right.
Parker got Tess and I didn't.
Yes,
but he remembered me, and a year later he cast me as Rosanna, and then we worked opposite each other.
That's a smart man, that Vince, because you both really, Parker fit Tess and you fit, much. You see each of you in those characters. Allyson, you remember?
Yeah, I remember sitting in the rehearsal room, and I hadn't been a soap watcher, so this was it was a foreign world to me. Mm-hmm. But I remember sitting at the table being very aware of how many people would just kill to be in that spot and sitting around that table with those people. So it was really fun getting to meet everybody.
Do you remember who was around the table for you?
I don't remember. I think John Hensley was there and Michael Morrison. One of the people that was there, not sitting around the table, but Liz Hubbard was there, and I hadn't been introduced to her. And somebody was asking about my last name, which at the time was hyphenated, because I had just gotten married. And she overheard that, and all she said was, "And you want his name on your work?" And I was
welcome. That totally sounds like Liz.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I have a story about that, Allyson. I remember I was doing the last scene before I left to go get married, and I was waiting for an entrance with Larry Brigman. And Larry Brigman was standing just off stage with me. We were both waiting for our cue to enter, and he goes, "So, I hear you're going off to get married." And I said, "I am. I am. I'm getting married on Saturday, and then we're going on a honeymoon." And Larry was like, "Don't do it. Don't do it."
Yeah, that's funny. So my first day, on set was a short scene in an airplane where I meet Lisa Brown, who was playing Iva Snyder, and that kicked off things. But the day I remember was my second day. Now, I had done soaps before, but I hadn't done them for 5 years. And I had come from LA, where I was living at the time. And it was one of those deals, fly in on Sunday, start working on Tuesday. And I was like, and so my second day, I had 5 scenes. I had like 35 pages of dialogue, right? And I was so nervous that I wound up getting canker sores in my mouth. So that day, I'm working with Liz Hubbard. And I have to go toe to toe with Liz Hubbard, which is not fun. And so she's about to eat me for lunch, and I'm putting Ambisol in my mouth to try and deal with the canker sores. And so what happened was the characterization that came out, I'm kind of talking like this. I'm sort of doing this. And it sort of, and everybody loved the deal. They loved the way I was delivering my lines because of the Ambisol, because I couldn't talk like this. I sort of had to talk like this and be a real kind of business guy. And so that kind of set the characterization for Kirk moving forward. They say, oh, he's really acting like a shark. Look at the way he's talking. He's really, wow. And it was all because of canker sore pain in my mouth. So
you should be an influencer for Ambisol.
They got me through. They got me through the first couple of days of shooting on As the World.
I think I only had.
Allyson?
I think I only had one scene on the first day, and I just showed up at the door, and that's where they opened the door, and I said my name. And I don't remember the guy who was doing hair at the time, but he just kind of pulled it back and put it in a French braid. And, it's not like I was moving around a lot and you got to see this beautiful French braid. It was just like flat against my head, and like I was straight onto the camera. And I just was like, it just didn't feel very good. And it was Dan Hamilton, I'm pretty sure was directing that first one. And he came out, and he's like such an actor's director. He came out and just took me aside, and he was like, I just want to make sure you feel good when you're walking in. Are you happy with everything? Are you happy with hair and makeup? And I was just like, and he stopped. He stopped everything, and they redid my hair.
Wow.
Wow.
That's cool.
Dan was. I remember Dan Hamilton being like the only. A lot of people don't know this about soaps, but we don't get a lot of direction. We don't get a lot of actor help. It's so technical and it's so fast. And when you're new and you're first starting, it can be really frustrating. And he's the only one who would really talk to you like an actor. He was one of those directors. I always remember him being wonderful. They used to call me Bambi. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Big eyes. You had those eyes and those long eyelashes.
That's so funny. I love that.
Dan started as an actor. He was an actor first, right? That's why.
Yeah.
And
that makes sense. Allyson, do you remember? Did you screen test with somebody?
You know what? It's such a blank. I was so nervous that day. I don't remember who the screen test was with.
Must have been John, right? You got. Weren't you? Or you with? You were
first. Who were you first with? Wait.
Was it Jimmy? Was Jimmy Wilczek?
Yeah. It was Link.
Oh yeah,
Link. Right.
Yeah, Jimmy Wilczek. Yeah.
Yeah, that must have been.
Did you have to screen test?
I see Jimmy Wilczek at the gym sometimes out here still.
Wow.
He's a sheriff now. He actually went through I don't know if you guys know he went through the whole LA County Sheriff program and is now
a sheriff?
He's a sheriff. I believe it's LA County Sheriff. Yeah, because there's like the CHP and I'm pretty sure he's a sheriff.
I'm gonna have to reach out to him. I think it would be great to talk to him about both things.
Right now, such a sweet guy. He was such a sweet guy.
Right now it's tough to be, I'm sure, a sheriff.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And Tom, who did you?
I had a lengthy screen test with Lisa Brown. And that was great because we had known each other socially. We just ran in the same pack coming up as actors in New York City on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And so we knew a lot of people. And so we wound up had really great chemistry, and it was great. The downside was when I showed up for my first day, she comes bounding up and says, "Guess what? Great news." I said, "What?" "I'm pregnant." I was like, "Oh no!" So here we go. With we're going to have like 6 months of carrying the big bag and having to do this. And sure enough, that's what we did. So we made it. We made it work. Funny. We made the romance work somehow.
And Judson, do you remember your first day?
I don't know that I remember my first day. I just remember having my shirt off a lot and being at, Snyder Pond on the AstroTurf.
Your shirt was off in our screen test.
What's that?
Your shirt was off in our screen test.
In the screen test, yes. Mm-hmm. Lots of shirts off, lots of mist, lots of dream, like flashbacks and dream sequences. And I remember one time. Yes. Hey, there it is. Nice.
Stephen Bergman sent that to me today.
That's amazing.
Wow.
That's
I remember. I still am in touch with some of those guys, the photographers, on
me
Instagram.
Too,
EJ Carr. Yep.
Oh, EJ. Yeah, I love EJ.
Love EJ Carr.
Yeah, EJ's a great guy.
Yeah, one of the best days I ever had in my life. It was, and I think Allyson, you were there. We went with Renee Props. It was me, it was you, and someone else, and we did a half day of a shoot at EJ's, and it was when Tom Petty's album with Free Fall had first come out, and he had it playing, and it was just sort of like. We were all there, and it was like I looked around. And I said, "Yeah, this is why I got into this business. This is what I had hoped might happen, possibly if I."
Music definitely always helped the photo shoot.
Yeah,
right?
and that album became a huge hit, but we were all just having fun and doing a bunch of stuff, and it was just it was a good group of people and a great vibe, and I'll never forget that photo shoot. It was really cool.
He played great music in his studio.
Yeah, always. Yeah, always.
One of our fans, Karen, said it's great to see all of you together. Rosanna and Connor were my favorite characters.
Yeah.
Alexis says, I hated it when Carly stole Mike away from Rosanna using a typical soap pregnancy ploy.
Yeah.
I'm pregnant story.
Yeah.
Well,
it's so funny being pregnant. Like the first person that knew that I was pregnant, like before my family knew, was Lawrence Queso. Like I told Lori first, like our producer. Yeah, and nobody else knew. It's like it just felt really weird that was the first person I was telling.
We were so young. It's interesting when you have, because I know I was at your baby shower, Allyson, and I think I threw Maura West's first baby shower for Ben at my apartment.
Nice for Ben.
Yeah, and
Ben, who's like 26 or something now, or something like that.
Yeah.
My son is 26.
Wow.
Yuck.
I know, it's
crazy.
My oldest is 22.
I got photos from both those baby showers.
Speaking of kids, are any of the kids following in your footsteps? I know, Allyson, yours is doing music, right? Your son?
Yeah, he is.
Not mine.
Not acting though.
No, I scared mine off from that. So yeah, they're doing. My youngest daughter is a NICU nurse out here in Denver, and my oldest daughter Anna is an HR specialist working for a big law firm. So very happy, loves doing it. So I'm glad that they've opted for a little more certain future than I was able to, than I had to deal with. So it's cool.
My youngest may I think has the thing, but he's not. He isn't really pursuing it yet.
How old is he?
He's 13. And then his older brother is 14. He's more of a skater and more of a athletic type. And then my oldest is killing it in the cannabis field right now. Driving a Lamborghini and has one of those watches with all the things. Yeah. And, Instagram stories with it. Yeah. It's just, but yeah, he's doing great.
It's a good moneymaker these days.
Yeah. He got in at the right time.
Are you in LA, Judson? Are you in LA?
Yeah, I'm in Los Angeles. Yeah, he lives downtown in like a high rise and all that. I'm in Sherman Oaks, kind of in a nice little central area in the valley. It's pretty cute.
Nice.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, it's been nice out here. It's been. My brother lives in Brooklyn, and we've been in contact through this whole process of quarantine and all.
Brutal.
Yeah, it's tough in the city, man. My those guys are locked up.
Well, my oldest daughter was there, and then ironically, she just moved to Seattle, which is, but they've gotten their shit together. They've gotten their stuff together, and
it's okay. It's the internet.
Okay, yeah.
I'm glad it wasn't me.
We don't have the censors.
Right. I'm still thinking CBS censors.
It'll just last forever on the internet.
Right.
Yeah.
They'll make a meme of it, or like a boomerang of it.
Right. Ooh, Kirk said.
Yeah.
Right. That could be I don't have a new song. So she moved out there, but they literally didn't go out of their apartment for like 2 months. I mean, it's bad.
And out here, it's especially in the beginning, there's enough space in the way the city is sort of flattened, and so you could go out and take a hike up the hill or whatever and not really be around anybody,
Right.
But then all the trails got really packed with people.
Yeah,
nobody was distancing. I just like staying in my apartment.
Are you out here, Allyson, too?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Where are you?
I was in Topanga for 19 years, nice. And then, but about a year and a half ago, moved down to Woodland Hills, downsized, and moved.
Yeah, Woodland Hills is great too. I like Woodland Hills.
I remember that little house you rented that was right next door to where Charlie Chaplin used to live, Allyson.
That was on Laurel Canyon.
Yeah,
that was the first place we lived. Yeah,
I remember visiting you there.
Good memory.
Cute. You had it so cute. Yeah,
I think
earlier
you brought up Liz Hubbard. Tom, can you share some
tidbits,
memories of?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you I'll preface it by saying the one of the two best bits of feedback I got from my time on As the World Turns was from an older African American lady who told me that she worked in a hair salon, in a predominantly African American hair salon, and when As the World Turns came on, everything would stop. And everything completely stopped when Kirk and Lucinda came on because they wanted to see the fireworks. And half the salon was rooting for Kirk and half the salon was rooting for Lucinda. And they'd be just like, ooh, oh, here we go. And it made me feel so good. I mean, that's what we're doing this for. That's what we're doing this for that kind of investment. And so Liz created that. Liz Hubbard created that. Her, from an acting standpoint, and I don't want to get into the weeds about acting, but there's a basic question she would always ask: what are we doing here? What do you want? What do I want? And then we would proceed from there because, newsflash, sometimes the script wasn't so clear about it. Okay. And look, I became a writer. And I bet Allyson did too, because thankfully, As the World Turns allowed us to change the scripts back in the day. That changed over time. But back in the day, they allowed us to change everything because I'd say, excuse me, I said the opposite of this yesterday. So I can't say this today. It would be, and they'd go, oh, you're right. Okay. And so we would just make stuff up, but it was always about the intent of the character. What's the character want? And she would fight for it. But I remember there was one time I did have her on the ropes because she would do the one thing that I try not to do as an actor, and you're taught not to do, which is ask the other actor to configure their performance to help your character, right? Get what they want. That's kind of but there was one time where I had her, she knew that if I didn't do this, if I didn't have this reaction, it would be bad for her character. So I sort of was like, okay, let's see how she's finally going to have to come to me and ask me to try and, and that was kind of a moment of glory for me. But generally speaking, once you got past the tough exterior, she had a heart of gold. She cared about the people she worked with. And B, she fought for that character. I mean, she was relentless. And that made you fight for your character. And that's why everybody who worked with her, she made us all look better. Because we were in there fighting for our character, and we would, and if we didn't, she'd eat us for lunch. And I remember she did that to me a couple of times. I was like, son of a bitch, that ain't gonna happen to me again.
Allyson, everybody has
you had to go in the boardroom and tell her the company was now yours.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was just gonna say. Everybody has a tough Liz Hubbard story, but when she really felt like you did a good job, she would tell you.
Yes,
and that day when I took over at the board meeting, she came up to me afterwards and complimented the work that I had done that day. And I remembered that forever, because that meant a lot, because, she wouldn't say it if she didn't mean it. And when she meant it, it was great.
No, that's a big deal taking on, Lucinda Walsh.
Yeah.
It's one thing to get admiration and appreciation from fans or from people that come, and as you said, Tom, that's why we do it, and it's such a beautiful thing for the spirit. But it's an entirely different thing when your peers come to you and love on you, again, and I'll go back to the being on tour and having Yvonne make the effort to come a couple of times and, share her, thoughts and her, kind words. It just makes a big difference when you hear it from someone you respect or that you're working with and admire how they handle themselves. And I always admire that and appreciate that when other actors, artists are willing to, lean into it and give you a compliment.
Especially on our show, I have to say, because when I came on, I didn't know what to expect. And I just thought it was a lot of TV people. But one thing about Vince Liebhardt, our casting director, is he really liked stage trained actors. I mean, there's a discipline there that is, you have to really work on your craft if you're in the theater. And there were so many people with a theater background in that cast. So it was just, I was blown away by the talent that was in that cast, just the extraordinary amount of talent.
Well, I think knew that there was no time to teach anyone anything. If you came in there with training, like a lot of us had and continue to train, I know I'm always a student, you have to have that mindset, because otherwise, I mean, even now, if I could go back in time to my time on As the World Turns, I would have hired a coach. I would have hired somebody because I think I could have mined so much more by just someone guiding me a little more. And there's not a lot of guidance. You got to hit the ground running.
It's tough with the volume of work you're doing too, to really pull anything apart and make choices. And like you were saying, Tom, track what's happening. You know what I mean? Trying to stay, with some kind of continuity. Wait a second, didn't I just say that? That happened, didn't it? Or So it is hard, to.
Judson, they paired you with Parker Posey, another theater person, right?
That's right. Yeah, she was great. There's so many, with Billy Fichtner,
Billy Fichtner, right.
He just did this with Martha on Tuesday.
Oh, nice.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the two of them did that. But
he's an #1 guy, man. He's
a nice guy. I had never met him. He was so nice.
Solid.
Class act. I was very
great body of work.
So you want to hear my Parker Posey story? Was we were all on set one day, and she came up to me and talk about a backhanded compliment. She goes, "Hey, you look like you were kind of you were a teenager in the 70s," and I was like, "Thanks, I appreciate that." But she goes, I got this. I'm trying out for this movie that takes place in the 70s. Can you give me some vernacular from the 70s that you used as a teenager. So I gave her a whole bunch of stuff, some I won't repeat here, but, so a lot of sexual stuff and a lot of drug stuff and a lot, and I gave her this very specific vernacular. And, she came back and she said, wow, thanks a lot. I think I'm going to get this movie. And it turned out to be Dazed and Confused. And I was like, thank you. I'll take credit for that. Thank you very much.
If I'm not mistaken, she was not going to be allowed to leave to do that. And she just left her contract early. I mean, it wasn't that. I think she was only on a 1-year contract.
Yeah, I think
she was like, I'm not missing this film. And she just left.
And she blew up after it. Yeah. So, but it was nice to feel I had a little part in some of that success. So
she left her mark in Oakdale. I mean, everybody who's come through the doors, you were just talking about Bill and Julianne and Steve, you all have.
There's so many people have been.
I wanted to say something about the, you don't get a lot of training or a lot of coaching on there. And I knew I came in with no on-camera training, but after the screen test, Laurie brought me up to his office and he said, here, I want you to watch this. I think it was after I was cast. And he showed me the screen test and he said, you have this pattern about the way that you respond with the lines. And he showed me what it was. And I was like, wow, I had no idea. And that right there was the reason why I watched every single episode that I shot for the entire 7 years that I was on. And not everybody did, because, you watch yourself and you're like, oh, that's how I sound.
Yeah.
It's just not very fun to watch it. But
but you learn.
You learn
so much. I mean, it was a training.
Yeah.
Well, I was like, oh my God. Yeah, I'm like acting with my eyeballs. Cut it out. I used to hold all this tension in my neck like this, and I was like, what's going on with my jaw? Like, you have to watch yourself. I used to watch every episode.
Yeah, me too.
And not everybody did, but it's the only way that you caught stuff.
Some people have never watched anything. Right. Some actors have not ever turned on one of their performances. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yvonne, Mike and Rosanna were voted the hottest soap couple by People Magazine, which doesn't really happen. People Magazine doesn't cover daytime. What was that like? And you worked with Sean and Maura. It was a triangle with your sister. Talk about Maura, because I know the fans have been asking.
Well, first of all, I want to say I was really fortunate with all four actually of the men that I got to work with on my time on that show, starting with Judson, Judson, I have to say, I mean, Judson taught me how to do an on-camera kiss. I never was taught how to do that.
He was your first pairing, correct?
He was my first guy. And, the work that I do now with intimacy choreography and intimacy direction, the industry is changing in a way that we're now starting to actually converse with actors about how to create boundaries and how to actually choreograph and talk about this stuff. But that kind of language wasn't really part of our training back then. So you were sort of flying blind, and I really was. And Judson, from the moment we did our screen test together, I'll never forget, he took me aside and he was like, look, Yvonne, I don't think you know this, but here's how you do a kiss. And, he was just like totally blunt with me. And I was like, got it. Thank you. Didn't know that. And, I went on and screen tested several other guys after I was there. And I tried I screen tested Sean Christian. I screen tested Ben. These were, and I tried to do the same thing.
Who was the other one? Ben? You said?
Ben was a doctor, an African-American doctor.
Oh, Peter Parra. Peter Parra.
Yeah, I think the intention was to get Rosanna with Ben and have him in between her and Mike. But, Maura got pregnant and then left the show. And then the writer got fired. And I think that's why, forgive me, Allyson, I think that's when you got written off and I got written off. New writers were hired and they came in.
There were like 3 waves. It was, we had a year where we had a couple of people, die, not just in the cast, but, behind the scenes. And then there was a turnover with head writers and with just so many, and with executive producers. And I think there were like at least 3 waves of actors that went. So you're like watching your friends go. And then I was in the 3rd wave of that. So
it was very unceremonious and brutal.
Yeah.
But, I had another year left on my contract, and they just shipped Rosanna off to Monte Carlo with her gambling addiction, and I was gone. And then
that's a new one. You don't really hear a lot going off because of their gambling addiction.
Yeah. I just started gambling in Monte Carlo and never came back. And then I came back for a year off and on. When Maura came back, I was back. But, Greg Watkins was adorable. He sang at my wedding. I mean, we were very close. He was a wonderfully supportive friend, and I loved my scenes with him. I loved the scenes that I got to do with you, Allyson. I mean, I always wish that they developed the friendships a little more on the show because I don't know, I can't speak for anyone else's tenure there, but there were some amazing women that were on the show when that time in the middle 90s, that 5 years that I was there, that I wished, because when Maura's character came on, Carly and Rosanna were so antagonistic that, well, Rosanna was an idiot and Carly was antagonistic, but but I really loved the scenes I could have with Allyson, the scenes I would have with Scotty DeFreitas. They were developing Rosanna's friendship with Scotty at the time, and I loved working with Scotty. I love just friends, being friends, work stuff out. It's not always sturm and drang. It's if you've got to regurgitate the information for the people that didn't tune in yesterday, I always loved doing it with a friendship on camera, and then Sean, I think it was his first ever acting job. He'd been a print model, I think. So I know I did a lot of, hand holding with him the first couple, I don't know what he would say about it, but we also worked really well together. I mean, and Doug Wirt, I ended up with Doug Wirt toward the end there. Right. Who did he play? Scott? Was he a Scott?
Scott Eldridge.
He was a Scott Eldridge. Yeah. There
were three, right? Did you work with three?
Three.
Were there actors who played Scott while you were there, or?
Well, was that Scott Bryce's character too?
No, Scott was Craig Montgomery.
Oh, okay.
Joe Breen and Christopher Cass.
I worked with Joe Breen also. So did Allyson. And so Joe and
Doug were.
And Doug, yeah. But I mean, that's four guys, and I mean, just wonderful men. But you guys, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, daytime is so insular, and so you have to get along. If you don't bring it, they just write you off. You're gone. You don't last if you can't find a way to work with the people that you have to work with. So,
no, that's true, because I wound up getting a non-contract and a serious look over at Guiding Light for a role that honestly I was miscast in. I played a cowboy, and I can play cowboys. I'm a good cowboy, but after 10 years of Kirk Anderson on the same network on Guiding Light, people were like, what? No. But they paired me with, I can't remember her name. I think her name was Maeve McGuire or somebody like that. Very lovely actress. But Maeve Kincaid. Lovely actress, but she just wasn't buying what I was selling. And they had brought me on to be a love interest for her. And
I don't remember. Was that it? What year is that? That was
99. Yeah. My first scene, my first day, I worked with Hayden Panettiere, who was 9 years old.
Yeah. Yes, I remember.
Lizzie Spalding.
Yeah, but the person, and I can't remember her name, even though she was on Guiding Light forever, and now she's on GH and has had an amazing.
Laura Wright.
Laura, there you go. She and I had amazing chemistry, and we both looked at each other and were like, oh, we can do something with this. And that's what people don't understand about the soaps, maybe, really, is that a lot of times actors I did it wherever I went to try and go, I've got real chemistry with that person. Let's work the hell out of that.
You were great with Brooke Alexander too, weren't you, Tom?
Yeah, I was with Brooke, and I was with Brooke and
Renee Props,
and Renee and I had great chemistry, and we were like, let's work this. And Doug Marlin noticed, and he shifted us as a couple, which pissed a lot of people off.
Well, Kirk and Ellie got married.
Yeah, right. And that pissed a lot of people off because they like Kirk and Iva. But, Maeve and I just didn't have it. And I spent 5 months on the show, and I knew I was going to be written off because it was like I had one purpose That was it. And you know, the cool thing about soaps, though, and I was thinking about this before coming on, you know, we've got this great thing happening now, the Me Too movement, you know, women's empowerment in show business. And the thing that always was happening in the world of daytime, it might not have been necessarily run by women, but it was a female-driven medium. The stories were about women. We were just there to facilitate those stories. It was really about women, you know, and you could guarantee if you weren't connecting with the woman you were supposed to be with, the actress you weren't going to last long. You know, because this was a female-driven medium, and I really appreciated that. You know, I thought that's cool, and you know, sort of a precursor to what's going on now.
True, but I think, like you said, I think what Yvonne was saying about not focusing on the friendships, that was a big hole, because when it is female-driven, I mean, that's really important. And I think one of the things that people tune in to the soaps, it's because it's like family. So if you don't have family around you, or whatever is going on in your life, you can tune into the show and hear all the people that you know. So I agree with Yvonne. I think it would have been really great to develop some of the friendships more, because I think people would have loved to watch that as well.
And especially because you and I were good friends for a long time there when we were on the show together. I mean, I just adored you, and I really respected you, and I wanted to work with you more, because I wasn't in those boardroom scenes. You know, I don't have a great Lucinda story. I have great Kathleen Widow stories.
Yeah, I want to hear those. But the reason I started this was everybody was quarantined, and I was thinking, just like Allyson, you said, you are family. You were in these people's living rooms for 5 days a week, and right now a lot of people were stuck at home. And, you know, I can see what people are writing. They're like, just seeing your faces is putting a smile on their face, you know. It's just perfect. Yvonne and Judson, your first triangle was with Sharon Case, right? It was a three of you.
After Parker, because that was
it was first Parker
and then Sharon
came in.
And when I left the show, Sharon was so lovely to me, and I was out in LA for a couple of years, and I remember a couple times she took me on the set of Y&R, and we hung out together there, and it was really fun to see her. She's a lovely young woman. She was a lovely young woman at the time. She's still a lovely woman, I assume.
Yeah, we had a great friendship. I really liked Sharon. We had a good time. I remember her being really just kind and pleasant and fun to work with, and generous as an artist, and
it took me back when I was researching to see the picture of you three.
So young.
I'd forgotten that she was on. But when I saw the three of you together, Allyson, a lot of fans are asking if you would share some memories of Rita Lloyd, who got to play your mom.
Rita, Edwina.
Who played mom.
I don't have a lot of stories about it. She was just a really strong woman. Really enjoyed working with her. Greg and I both did.
She did her job. She was one of those, like she came in and did her.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. She was like 100% pro. But yeah, everybody that I got to work with in that storyline was great. And Greg, since I don't have a lot of
about him.
Yeah, he is somebody who the first day he came in, he was in the office, and I came in, I was with somebody else, and Vince came out and introduced me to Greg. And I don't remember how it came about, but there was some reference, or he started like humming. It's like Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass, which that was old. That was old for us at the time, but both of us just loved Herb Alpert. And so
that is the most random thing.
It is so random. It is so random. But the minute that happened and we were both like, we just knew like this was the perfect casting for brother sister. It was like
Greg
we just connected.
A good Jim Carrey impersonation from In Living Color. Do you remember?
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Greg did a great Elvis. He sang an Elvis song at my wedding. Right. He impersonated Elvis, and he was delightful.
Yeah. Maybe the nicest guy in show business ever. Greg Watkins. I mean, just really genuinely cared about other people and would do anything for you. Yeah. So here's a Kathleen Widow's story.
Oh yeah, please.
That probably happened to Judson too, because apparently it happened to everybody after it happened to me. First day in the rehearsal room, Kathleen was there, and she came over She said, "Come here, I want to talk to you." And she pulled out her T-shirt and showed me one breast. I said, "Oh, I just wanted to welcome you to the show."
I do
welcome you to the show.
I do remember that.
And then somebody said, "Oh, did Kathleen show you her breasts?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Yeah, she does that to every new guy who comes on the show. Don't worry. I got a breast special. She just does it to welcome you." I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna like it here. I think I'm gonna have fun here.
I'm gonna like it here. Yeah. I'll stay a little while."
Yeah.
She would also pull on a chin whisker. She'd always be like, "Oh, that's another whisker coming in."
Oh my God, that's right, she would.
Oh, stop. Now you're killing me. Now you're killing me.
Woman, oh my
She'd
God.
be like, "Can you see it? I can feel one right here." And for those of us now who are middle-aged, now I know exactly what she's talking about. I'm like, I got one right here.
Right.
But we're
the
probably
Snyder
crushing
kitchen.
We're probably crushing people's image of poor Emma Snyder.
Right.
Go ahead about the Snyder kitchen. I hear there's a lot of bad things that went on in the Snyder kitchen.
She loved a good
Those were my favorite scenes, going to the Snyder kitchen. I didn't get to go a huge amount of time, but when I saw that in a script, I was like, "Oh yay!" Because it was just a great group of people, and the feeling in that set was just
awesome.
really relaxed and homey, and it was exactly like you would think it would be. And
I believe Maura West has the dishes from the Snyder kitchen. That she took after the show ended.
Wow.
All those jars of fake fruit pickling on the shelves. Do you remember those?
Yes, totally. By the staircase, right?
Yeah,
You didn't want to fart in the staircase because it was very close up there.
Well, so one day I had scenes there, and I don't know how this came up, but I used to do this all the time. Just make stuff up. And we were eating muffins, and I decided that I was going to have my muffin was going to be a bran muffin. And I had to leave. So it was like I had a bran muffin. So I concocted this whole mini scene within the scene where I have the bran muffin. Suddenly I have to go to the bathroom. I go to the bathroom, and Paul, what was his name? Crusty old Paul, the director?
Glamour.
Yes.
Glamour. So somehow I convinced him to actually track me to the bathroom. The scene goes on, and then I got to come out of the bathroom and go, "Woo, needed that." And so I'm watching it to see I'm like, they didn't keep that. That got cut. That got cut. And they kept it. I was like, yeah.
That's fantastic. That's
weird,
great.
but I want to say I remember that.
Yeah.
As you're telling that story, I'm going, wait a minute, because I remember at the time going, did he really just do that?
Yeah.
He really just did that, didn't he?
Yeah. We do a lot of stuff to keep ourselves amused, when we weren't the focus.
Right? I want to share a story about that because there was this was with Tom, and it was one of those like really huge, like everybody in Oakdale was in this restaurant. I don't remember what the event was.
It was either an AIDS ball or it was a wedding.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah.
We were
the
in
Mona
this
Lisa opening.
Yeah.
It might have been a Mona Lisa opening. Yes.
I think it was. Yeah. So Tom and I had hardly anything to do all day, and those days were so long.
20 hours.
Yeah. So we decided that what we were going to do was we were going to try to get in every single shot that we could possibly get in. So we would move in the back, and we were in the background for almost the entire day. But Tom and I, we would just be like, oh, and we would like we saw somebody, and we'd move into the shot, and then we'd be back in the scene. And we got in so many shots that day. I still have that tape somewhere.
Yeah.
You need to get that and put that up on YouTube.
I know, I should. That was so much fun.
So do you have a favorite storyline that you told that you worked on at World Turns? Something that stands out?
Good question.
And also if there's something that resonated with fans that you heard from fans, because that, like I said, your connection to fans is so different than people working in primetime or movies because of that 5-day-a-week thing. You are family.
I was always stunned at how comfortable fans would be when you would see them in the airport or somewhere. Like I hadn't been in, I come straight from school to the show, so I had really no real experience with being recognizable or anything like that.
Right, you got this right out of the academy, right?
Yeah, I had been thrown out of the American Academy of Dramatic Art 2 weeks before graduation.
That's why you were such a good actor. Okay.
Wow, what did you do?
So
2 weeks.
I missed 12 days, and you're only allowed to miss 11. And you know, they were going to make an example of me, and my attitude at the time was, well, listen, I'm paying you to come here, and all my marks were good, and I never missed a day or put anybody's scene, blah 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 blah. You know what I mean? I had this just rationale, this line of crap I was believing. But anyway, I'd missed too many days, and they were going to make an example of me for some reason, or you know, it was one of those things. But Vince Liebhardt, they were casting this role, and he couldn't find, I guess they couldn't find anybody. They'd looked around in the West Coast and the East Coast and all this. And so he called the school and happened to speak to Jim Demonic, who was a friend of mine and sort of a fan of mine at the school as a teacher, and got me the audition. It was my first audition.
He's like, Judson's free.
Yeah, doing nothing right now.
Judson, you were a bartender at the restaurant where I was a waitress.
Yes, that's the other. That's right, the Mulholland Drive Cafe. That's
Mulholland Drive Cafe, Patrick Swayze's restaurant.
Spot, yes,
right?
that's
wow.
And you bartended, and then you got Hutch, and then you disappeared.
Right.
And then a year later, I'm screen testing, and I was like, didn't we work together in the restaurant?
Wow.
Another interesting thing, Vince Liebhardt cast my brother in Stomp. And Jason Sarge was the lead in Stomp for like toured the whole world, did all this, and was on Broadway or off Broadway, I guess it is.
Off Broadway,
yeah, for like 15 years or something like that.
Wow.
But what I was going to say is I was struck by how comfortable people would be because you're in their room every day, because they're so just used to seeing you and having you around and seeing you go through this, that, and the other, and that they would come up and touch you and hug you, and they just were super comfortable. There was no real starstruck kind of a thing. They were just like, "Oh my God, hey Hutch, listen, I got it. Why aren't you with Tess? What is whatever? Like, what is your They were super comfortable, and that just I was stunned by that.
I think it's because it is like they're seeing family rather than they're seeing an actor.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, along that line, when I had to play the storyline where I was bulimic, that's not something that I've ever dealt with. Although I've had friends who have dealt with that, but I had young women write to me and say, I've never told anybody this before.
Wow.
Which is a huge responsibility. And I had done research about it, so I knew some things about it, but, telling them that they needed to go, just talking a little bit about what I knew, but then going, you need to speak to somebody who deals with this, who you can talk to. But that's a huge responsibility when you have some of these really intense storylines and the people connect with you and they'll tell you things they haven't told people in their lives. So that's
what's really incredible though, that they really feel that comfortable that they can do that.
Yeah. I mean, it's an honor.
You definitely, there's no doubt that you helped a lot of women that way. By just telling that story, doing your job, you helped a lot of women at home deal with their issues.
I remember I had a storyline, and all I remember is how it ended, which was just sort of amazing to me because I described Kirk as ethically challenged, and
he might have been a little.
Yeah, and I loved that about him, because he was very much like a lot of business people out there. And but I remember the end of this big storyline was when I think I had to rescue somebody in a fire. There was this big fire. And Kirk goes in and plays like the A-list hero, and I was like, damn, okay. We're going there. I'll take that. But it was kind of amazing. I also loved. I'll tell you, this is talk about a missed opportunity for the show. I had a storyline where, and this is a storyline I hated, but I made the best of it. Kirk was a deadbeat dad. He started out as a deadbeat dad.
Oh, yeah, James Vanderbeek.
Yeah, right. And so
James
finally,
Vanderbeek was your son.
Yeah, they bring my kids on, and I'm really trying to show I want that to change. I do not want to portray a deadbeat dad, and so I'm working very hard with the chemistry, and I have great chemistry with this kid, this actor. And after we shot that week, I go up to the executive producers. I go, you have got to sign this kid to a long-term deal. He's not only fantastic, but we work well together. And they were like, yeah, he's okay. 3 years later, he's friggin' Dawson on Dawson's Creek. And I'm like, you idiots. I mean, come on. The guy he was a really good actor, and we had good chemistry. So
yeah, you get a little savvy after a while to like.
Yeah, who can make an impact.
Lauren Hill, I was like, this girl I'm the contract role, and she's better than me. She was so good. She taught me so much just that first week. And then you get, and this is the story I started to mention to you, Alan, but I remember when Maura screen tested for Carly. She had just come out of college as well. And I remember they brought me up. I was really into the behind the scenes. So I was like the person that was always up in the production office, always in editing, always like watching people behind the scenes. I would sit there behind the guy in the boom and try to learn how he did his job. I was very interested in everything when I was there. And so when Maura screen tested, I was in the booth. I watched all of the Carly's screen test. I could be wrong, but I think it was Sean Christian's first time screen testing other people. So he had asked me, how do we do this? And I told him, here's what you got to do and be consistent and all that kind of stuff. So I remember there was an actress that looked a lot like me, and she was pretty good. And she looked just like my sister. And she was pretty good. And they really wanted to cast her as Carly. But Maura, as you guys know, I mean, she just has that something, that like thing that was that kind of charisma that I always talk about, right, Judson, that you just can't put your finger on, but you're like, there's something really special about what she's doing. And her work was just so much more interesting and different than everybody else's. And I remember the executive producer, which might have been John Valenti at the time, saying, who do you like? And we're thinking of this girl because she looks so much like you. And I was like, God, she's good. She does. She looks a lot like me. I go, but you guys should just cast the best actress. It doesn't matter that she doesn't look like me. The fans will go there. She's the one who's really interesting. And I'm sure that's not why they cast. But when they did ask me, I was like, nope, Maura West is your girl. So I love that they ended up casting her. She's had such a great career.
Yeah. I think they just returned to General Hospital this week, so she'll back to work. So being safe out there. Allyson, you have to tell the story about making that video, that music video, which I've created a short link for people to copy and they can find it. But
that's nice. Thanks.
So brilliant and so funny.
Yeah, well, my son has been doing music for a while, and at one point, we talk about his music a lot, and at one point he said he was going to have his little sisters sing on one or more of the songs, which I thought was a great idea. It'd be really special to have that. And then not too long after that, he said he was going to have his dad, my ex, Andy, play cello on one of them, which I also think would be amazing. But there was like a little part of me for about 10 seconds that was like, hey, what about me? Is everybody in the family going to get to be on the music except for me? And then I had to laugh at myself because, like, what 20-something-year-old guy puts his mom in his rap music, which is zero. But it inspired a really funny song. So then I talked myself out of it a bunch of times. It kept popping up, and I was like, oh, I should write a rap song about that. And then I was like, oh, I can't. I've never written a song, much less a rap song, even though I listened to it. And it kept popping up. And finally I was like, oh, I either have to stop thinking about this or I have to do it. So I thought, I'll go online and see if I can find a beat to lease. And if I can find a beat that works, then I'll give it a shot. And I found one right away within an hour and wrote this song. And while I was writing it, it was just meant to be, it's called Fine, I'll Write My Own Damn Song. And it was meant to just be a song that I was going to play over at Christmas time, because Andy and Alette and their girls would join Dash and me at my mom for Christmas. We spent like 4 years at Christmas as one big blended family. So I knew they would be there. And while I was writing the song, it was so visual in my head. So I thought, I have to make a music video out of this. So I contacted his two friends that had shot all of his music videos, and I found this really great interactive art museum here in LA on Pier Space, and rented that for 3 hours. That's all I could afford. I'm still paying it off, actually. But we shot it in 2.5 hours, and sort of unveiled it over the holidays. And my son was like, Mom, instead of just trying to help my music with this and direct people to his videos if they were watching mine, he said, you should think of something you could do for you with this. And that's what made me start thinking about film festivals. I didn't know if film festivals had music videos, and they do. And I just got 2 more official selections this week. So I think I'm up to about 13 or 14 film festivals in the last 6 months.
Oh my God. I've got to see this.
Oh, it's amazing.
It was fun.
It's amazing.
Because I wondered, especially the one with the purple wig with the
visual. Yeah.
I'm like, the art direction is so good on this video. So
it's this great. If you're out in LA, it's called Flutter Experience on La Brea, and they have a different artist each have their own room. They have one day off. So I was looking for a place where I could film in multiple spots, because I knew I was going to have different costumes, and I knew I wanted to do a lot with it. So I was looking for a location where I could do it in a self-contained place. And that place was amazing. So, and that was a backup place. I had another place, and then they closed. Once I finally got the shoot date and we had that all coordinated, it was gone, and I had to start over, and the whole thing had been blocked around the original place, so I had to start over. But it was fun. It was fun.
And there's a great cameo, but fans can see it when they watch.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to mention it by name, because I got it from cameo.com, and you're not allowed to promote anything or make any money off of it, but you can put it on social media and you can post it. So there's a cameo at the end that I can't mention by name.
Gotcha.
But it's worth the wait.
Yeah, it is worth the wait. It's so fun. It's so fun to watch. Hey, Judson, do you have a favorite TV role you've done? You've done so many different things.
Wow. I don't know. I just did a couple of movies I had a good time with. I did a thing with Ron Perlman and Natasha Henstridge that's super crazy, like Kill Bill kind of, Robert Rodriguez sort of, but just art directed like Children of the Lost City or something like it, right? Isn't that that movie, Children of the Lost City, with Lost City of Children, Lost anyway. And that was a lot of fun. But honestly, The Bodyguard was one of my favorite things that I've done.
That's awesome.
It's not a TV thing, but that working on that character for the length of time that I got to, and trying to find a way to make that work. And that experience was definitely my favorite.
Have you watched the David Foster documentary on Netflix?
No.
It incorporates the period of time where he helped
do the
music.
Oh,
do the
really?
Music. Yeah.
Oh.
So there's a portion of
There's
a portion of the documentary about that.
There's such a history around that movie and around that time. Like being in that show, there was a lot of stuff that came with that because of the movie and what happened with the movie and Whitney Houston and all of that. There were so many people that came to see, Patti LaBelle, like so many people came to see the show because of the music and because of Deborah Cox. Like I got to meet so many people, the Winans, and like there was such a lineage of because of her and because of Cosner and just what that soundtrack did, and Dolly Parton and writing the original song. So
yeah,
there was just a lot that I was very blessed to be exposed to and learn and be a part of by virtue of being attached to that project. It was really fun and educational and a wonderful, Whitney song. Everywhere I'd go, I'd hear Whitney Houston songs. There was so many of those kinds of moments. We'd be the night we were opening at the Paper Mill Playhouse in Jersey, which is not far from where Whitney Houston grew up.
Yeah, it's really close to where I live.
Yeah,
we were very close to
we were. We went. Deborah and I went across the street to a restaurant before the show. I think it was our first preview, and in that, as we were sitting down to eat, there was a version of a Whitney Houston Deborah Cox duet that they'd done. A remix of it came on. This random bootleg remix came on in this little restaurant, and we were like, wow. There was so many moments like that where you just had, your skin tingles and you get your hairs on your arms go up and you're like, whoa, this is magic, man. This is really cool. Doing the thing with Chuck Norris was a lot of fun. I got to admit that at that point in my life, getting to be a hero like that. And, at that time it was the biggest action show in the world. And so just, blowing stuff up and saving the day and fire and guns.
A guys show.
Yeah, it was super fun, slow
that
motion.
little thing called Walker, Texas Ranger.
Walker, Texas Ranger, yeah. It's a tiny show.
Tiny thing, yeah.
Right. And it's still on.
Is it really?
Yes.
Wow.
It rotates from show, USA to Hallmark to what are those other channels? They have those martial arts channels that come, it's on all the time.
Most things live on now. It's crazy.
Yeah,
it really is
wonderful. And Chuck Norris is not a bad set of coattails to ride. I just stumbled into a wonderful collaboration where I was the beneficiary of someone else's amazing ness in the world. Chuck Norris, what a great guy he was to work with, and for the Norrises and all of that family thing. Again, just like at World Turns, you develop these family relationships, and when you're doing something for any length of time, the tour, it's just, those are the things that swell my heart when I remember it and I think about it. I see you guys now, or I see something, or something reminds me of tour. It's the relationships that I remember that give me that warm and fuzzy feeling.
So funny.
Yeah.
Yvonne, do you have a favorite theater role? I know you're doing so much theater where you're living and teaching. Talk about teaching as well. How you got into it.
I'm in upstate New York. This is where I raised my family. I have two daughters that don't want to be actors, but they're adopted from China, so there's no blood in there. they dodged the bullet. Yeah. And so I'm an artistic associate at our Lort Theater up here in Albany, Capitol Repertory Theater. So I've done about 8 shows there, which has been great to go back to my theater roots. Although I've been doing a lot of television and spokesperson work while I've been raising my family. So I've been on camera, but not as an actor, more as a seller.
We hear your voice.
Yeah.
We hear your voice in a lot of things. I
do a lot of voiceover work. I do a lot of long form industrial narration work where I'm the voice of companies and narrate training videos and informational videos and things like that. So that's been really fun. And then probably there's a play called a Wendy Wasserstein play called Sisters Rosenzweig that I got to play the Madeline Kahn role. The character is gorgeous. And when I was doing that part, the woman who Wendy wrote about her sister, she wrote that play about her sisters, and her sister, who Gorgeous was based on, was running a bed and breakfast up in Vermont. And I just drove to Vermont. I didn't even tell her I was coming, and I rang the doorbell. And she let me in, and I ended up having a delightful afternoon tea with Wendy Wasserstein's sister, who the character was based on. And then she came down to Albany, and she saw me in the show.
Good for you. That is really smart. And a way to do your research.
I like the research thing. I mean, I have a master's in theater history now. I went back to school after, and I've been teaching at all the colleges around here for over 20 years too. So I keep myself busy.
Yeah. The work you're doing, she mentioned earlier the work and sort of breezed by it, but like we talked about it at great length. The work she's doing with the boundary stuff and the intimacy element, is really important and wonderful stuff to do. I mean, that's such an important part of. There are so many stories of women in particular who have been pushed into things on set and had boundaries overstepped in love scenes and in situations because there's not a lot of language or, like she's mentioned, or education on how to step into a scene. I have a wonderful coach out here that I've met and work with who's works with a lot of really great people, and her name is Lee Kilton Smith. And she talks when she teaches about because I stay in class too when I'm not doing something. I try to stay a student. Talks about the boundaries, having a boundary talk whenever you do anything, whether there's an intimate or sexual element or not. If there's any kind of improvisational stuff that comes up, have that talk. Is it okay you can spit at me, you can push me, don't hit me in the pride and in the jewels. But you can, slap me if you need to, or there's a lot of stuff that is magical.
But I think in a lot of ways, when you're on a soap like As the World Turns, like we were, I felt lucky because we're sort of protected in that environment. You get on a show like World Turns or Guiding Light, any of these daytime shows, you are walking into an environment where they have been shooting love scenes for decades before you got there. So there's a process in place. There's a protocol in place. They clear the set when you're, once I had to take a shower with Sean Christian, the set got cleared. They do all the correct protocols, which is not necessarily the case in a lot of TV and theater work where casts are just coming together for the first time and the production team is all brand new. And if you don't have a leader that knows how to have those conversations, then you physically can be very unprotected and have trauma. But the other thing is, but even in daytime, I think there wasn't a lot of conversation about the emotional trauma, about you're playing a different character for so many hours of your day and how to not let your head get lost in this separate reality. Talk about fans calling you out by name. I mean, Walmarts were always dangerous for me when I left the soap. People would just yell Rosanna, and they'd follow me down aisles, and and they think you're someone else. And a lot of that, some of that can happen to you in your own head too, where you go, is this real? Is this fake? And it's very easy. That's why things happen on sets. That's why showmances happen, because we don't know how to emotionally prepare ourselves to separate work from real life. And so although I felt very protected on As the World Turns, I would say physically, they could have done some better work emotionally to help us.
It's also harder on, young, especially you're really young. Like if it's your first job, and like some of the sex scenes are supposed to be the characters first. It might be an actor's first. It's definitely a different, environment to put yourself in.
And I like that we're having conversations now. We have the conversations in a way that we didn't have the conversations before. But it'll happen to older people too. It doesn't just happen with the kids. Yeah.
I wanted to.
We're vulnerable when we're young. But go ahead, Alan.
I wanted to share a story that, like you were talking about, people think you're somebody else when you go outside, when you're outside the studio. And I had a scary thing happen at one point when I was there, and I had a young baby at the time, so it really kind of freaked me out. There was a guy who wrote a letter from, I think he was in Oklahoma at the time, and he was convinced, I mean, he was really off balance mentally, and he was convinced that I was his ex-wife, that I was cheating on him, and would like have these huge swings in these letters. And I got a couple of them where he hated me and I was cheating on him, and he was so convinced. And then he loved me, and why did I leave, and why he wanted me back. And it really freaked me out. And I remember they took those letters and it was like, we will handle this. And they got law enforcement from both states. And I think because it was across states, then it became a federal thing. And I think the FBI got involved in it. I don't really know details, because once they took over, they were like, we've got it. And it turns out he was just kind of unstable and was in and out of homeless shelters, and they didn't think that, you know, he was going to be capable of anything. But it is definitely, people get lost in the other reality.
Correct. And that, you were smart to do what you did. Tom and Allyson, and now today in 2020, you two are working together.
Yeah. It's been great. It's been really great. Well, my wife, I finally got really smart and did what I think a lot of men should do, is just let women run the show. And so my wife started a company and intentionally left me out of it in terms of the operation, which I was all on board with. And so it's called Atomic Focus Entertainment. And it's a production company and an entertainment company that creates, develops, and produces projects for film, broadcast, television, and streaming. And so this all started. The genesis of it was at the Stage Network in New York, where Allyson and I and my wife had worked. And so when that kind of faded away, Jen started this company, and was kind enough to bring me on board to work in creative development, and then brought Allyson on to work in creative development. So we have a great time. Allyson's come to our house in Charleston, South Carolina, and we brainstorm, and we've had some exciting. It's brand new, this company. I mean, it's been around for months, and so things are really We have some great properties that we're developing. We've shot one travel show. We have lots of scripted projects that we're excited about, and Allyson introduced us to a new manager that we're about to sign with in LA. And so, we get to work every week together on different projects. So it's been really great. It's been really great hanging with her and getting reacquainted, and so it's an exciting deal.
It started even like a number of years back, because my son's stepmom, Alette, she and I got to be good friends over the years, and she was saying, I need to introduce you to my friend Jen. And this is when you guys were still in Arizona, I believe.
Right.
She's like, Jen married Tom Wiggin. I was like, get out of here. And I think that's when we connected on Facebook, and weren't really in, touch frequently at that point, but just occasionally. And then Alette's who brought me into the Stage Network, and then she brought Jen in, and Tom created shows and then directed and produced. And so we all got to work together there. And then when everybody was gone,
is a small world.
I know it is. It's just been so much fun, though.
It's crazy.
Fun to get to work together again.
Fans were asking if Patrick Cabot, they loved you and Cal together. Any memories of working with Patrick?
Oh, he was just the nicest man you could ever hope to work with.
So sweet.
Yeah. A funny story is he used to be able to fall asleep like that. And I was always really jealous. I had my insomnia has gotten really bad through the years, but we'd be at a big wedding, and it'd be like Patrick just needed to lay down on like the little in the pew, and he was out, and then he was back up and he was working, and I was just like, oh man, I wish I could do that.
Like a 5-minute snooze.
Yeah.
And then for all of you, who is the biggest prankster?
Michael Morrison.
Yes, Michael Morrison.
Oh, was it Caleb?
Yeah.
Michael David?
Yeah, Michael Morrison. And he just really, he was, we had a few star-crossed people on our show who, Michael Benjamin Hendrickson, who suffered internally with issues, but both were extraordinary actors. Oh. But Michael Morrison was just so funny, and he would and he would do all kinds of different stuff. But the one story I have quickly with Michael Morrison was he he had certain gastro issues that constantly needed to be monitored, and so there was one scene where
we talked about the Snyder Kitchen staircase.
And so there was one scene where he was having terrible stomach pains because something needed to happen that wasn't happening. So he made someone run out and get him prune juice. We had to stop filming. They ran out and got him prune juice. They came in and he's like doubled over. He runs off set. He drinks the prune juice. He's gone for like 3 minutes. And then he enters the studio and is dancing and going, because whatever had to happen had happened. And I mean, everybody's just falling out on the floor.
That is the exact story that I was thinking of before you started talking. I remember that day. I remember that so vividly.
I can't think of any better way to end the show than on Michael David. That's a good tribute. Guys, this has been amazing. I know the fans have loved it. Fun. I've loved spending time with you, and I hope you had fun.
Yes, it was great.
Absolutely, this was great.
Blessings to all.
I gotta say a shout out to my favorite PA, Brett Hellman.
Hey.
I know.
Oh yeah.
All
right.
I don't know if anybody. Do you all know Lamont Craig?
Of course.
I just was talking to him about 20 minutes before. So.
Send our love.
All those office people, the Alex, the Lamont, and the Fritz. Time. I love it.
I know they tune in sometimes, so I'm sure they're quite happy to hear that. So
we'll keep it going, Alan. This is great.
This is great. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
We can say goodbye. I'll just sign off. Stay here for a minute.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for tuning in today. I hope you had a great time.